My name is Josephine Tan. I'm 34 years old. 8 months ago, I stood in the back room of a bookstore in downtown Portland, surrounded by 200 chairs, a table stacked with copies of my debut novel, and a microphone waiting for me at the podium. The event coordinator squeezed my arm and said, "Your parents must be so proud." I smiled and said nothing. Because my parents weren't there. They were 40 minutes away, at a community center in Beaverton, watching my younger sister Kira shape a bowl on a pottery wheel. It was the third session of a 6-week beginner's class. Not a graduation, not an exhibition. A Tuesday night class that met every week and would meet again the following Tuesday. I'd invited them 2 months in advance, sent them the date, the time, the address. I'd even offered to pay for their parking. My mother's response, delivered over the phone while she was clearly doing something else, was, "Joe, that's the same night as Kira's pottery. She'd be so hurt if we missed it. You understand, right? You've always been the independent one. You don't need us there the way she does." I was about to read from a novel that took me 4 years to write. A novel that a major publishing house had paid me a $60,000 advance to complete. And my parents chose a $180 pottery class. But what they didn't know was that at 8:47 that evening, while they were sitting in a community center watching Kira glaze a lopsided cereal bowl, my editor would call me with news that would change everything. News that would end up on the front page of Publishers Weekly. News that would make my parents' absence not just painful, but permanently visible. Before I tell you what that phone call was about, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love reading every single one. Now let me take you back to where this pattern really started. Growing up in Lake Oswego, Oregon, I learned early that attention in our family was distributed like an inheritance I wasn't named in. My father, Howard Tan, was a civil engineer, methodical, quiet, a man who expressed love through logistics. He drove Kira to gymnastics, to dance, to piano. He built her a reading nook in her bedroom when she was 9. My mother, Valerie, was an office manager at a dental practice who poured every ounce of her emotional energy into making sure Kira felt supported. My sister Kira was 3 years younger, effortlessly charming, and had the kind of warmth that made everyone in a room gravitate toward her. She was also, by her own cheerful admission, someone who struggled with commitment. She started things, lots of things, and rarely finished them. And then there was me. The quiet one. The girl in the corner with a notebook. The one who finished everything she started and never asked for applause. Kira got encouragement. I got expectations. When I was 15, I won a statewide writing competition. First place out of over 1,000 entries. My English teacher called my parents. Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey," and then spent the next 20 minutes on the phone helping Kira prepare for a volleyball tryout she'd ultimately quit after 2 weeks. Dad nodded at the certificate and said, "Good work, Joe, keep it up." He didn't ask what I wrote about. It was about our family. He never read it. That same month, Kira decided she wanted to learn guitar. Dad drove 45 minutes to a music shop in Tigard to buy her a $600 acoustic. She played it for 3 weeks and it gathered dust in her closet for the next 4 years. I told myself it was fine. Writing didn't cost anything. I just needed a notebook and a pen. I didn't need a $600 investment, I was low maintenance. That was my value. At 22, I graduated from the University of Oregon with a degree in English literature and a 3.94 GPA. I'd been published in 3 campus literary journals, won the department's senior thesis award, and been accepted into a competitive MFA program in New York. My parents came to graduation. They left during the reception because Kira had a shift at the restaurant where she worked and needed a ride home. Her car was in the shop. It was always in the shop. Kira's 2 years of community college, which she didn't complete, cost my parents $14,000 in tuition they never got back. My undergraduate education was funded by $22,000 in scholarships and $31,000 in student loans that were entirely my responsibility. When I'd asked my parents if they could help with even the interest payments, Dad said, "You've got a good head on your shoulders, Joe. You'll figure it out. Kira needs more support right now." Kira was 20 at the time. She was on her fourth job in 2 years. I told myself it made sense. I was capable. Capable people didn't need help. That was the deal. After my MFA, I moved back to Portland and spent 4 years writing my novel. 4 years of early mornings and late nights, of working full-time as a copywriter at an ad agency and coming home to pour everything I had left into a story I believed in. I revised the manuscript 11 times. I queried 43 literary agents. 40 rejected me. 3 requested the full manuscript. 1 signed me. 6 months later, we had a deal. A real publisher. A $60,000 advance, paid in 3 installments. My agent called me and I cried in the bathroom at work for 10 minutes. I told my parents that night. Mom said, "Oh, that's exciting, Joe. A book." Then she asked if I could help Kira write her resume because she was applying for a receptionist position. Dad said, "A book deal? What's the advance?" I told him. He said, "Not bad. Is that before or after taxes?" Not bad. 4 years of my life compressed into not bad. Kira, meanwhile, had discovered pottery. She'd signed up for a beginner class at the Beaverton Community Center. 6 Tuesday evenings, $180, all materials included. Mom was thrilled. "Kira is finally finding her creative outlet. She's so talented, Joe. You should see the little dish she made." I'd written a novel. Kira made a dish. The dish got more enthusiasm. But all of that was just the runway. The real crash was the book launch. I planned the event for months. The bookstore, Chapters & Co. on Burnside, had a capacity of 200. My publisher's publicity team helped coordinate press. A local NPR affiliate confirmed they'd send someone, and 3 other Portland authors agreed to introduce me. It was the biggest night of my professional life. I sent my parents a formal invitation. I also texted them. I also mentioned it at Sunday dinner. 3 separate times. 2 weeks before the event, Mom called. "Joe, honey, I just realized your book thing is the same night as Kira's pottery class." "I know, I sent you the date 2 months ago." "Well, Kira would be devastated if we missed her class. She's really committed this time. Can't you move your event?" Move my event. A publishing event with 200 RSVPs, a press presence, and coordinated logistics across 3 time zones. Move to accommodate a beginner pottery class. "Mom, I can't move it. The publisher set the date. There are 200 people coming." "I just don't want Kira to feel like we're choosing you over her." That sentence. I replayed it in my head for days. She didn't want Kira to feel like they were choosing me over her. The possibility of choosing me over Kira wasn't even a consideration. It was binary. Attend Kira's thing or make Kira feel bad. I wasn't a variable in the equation. You understand, right? You've always been the independent one. You don't need us there the way she does. I hung up and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. My apartment was quiet. The manuscript sat on my desk in a neat stack. 312 pages, 4 years of work, printed on paper I'd bought at Office Depot because it felt more real than a screen. I thought about every recital I'd attended for Kira, every volleyball game, every dance showcase, every open mic night at the coffee shop where she sang 3 songs and decided music wasn't for her. I'd been at all of them, every single one. Not because anyone asked me to, but because that's what family did. Then I thought about what my family had done for me. I opened a notes app and started writing it down. Times my parents attended something important to me. My high school graduation. My college graduation, partially. That was it. 2 events in 34 years. Times I'd attended something for Kira in the last 5 years alone. 14. I counted them. Money spent on Kira's hobbies since she turned 18. Guitar lessons, $600 plus $200 for the lessons she attended twice. A photography course, $450. Cooking classes, $800. A sewing machine she used once, $380. Gym memberships at 3 different studios, $2,400. And now pottery, $180. Roughly $5,000 in abandoned interests, all enthusiastically funded. Money my parents spent on my writing career? 0. Not a single dollar. Not a notebook, Not a submission fee. Not even a congratulatory dinner when I signed my book deal. I closed the app. Then I opened my laptop and wrote the most honest paragraph I'd written in years. It didn't go in the book. It went in a journal I still keep in my nightstand drawer. Something shifted that night. Not anger, something quieter. A decision. I would stop waiting for them to celebrate me. I would celebrate myself. And if they ever wanted to join, the door would be open. But I would no longer hold it for them. The night of the launch, I arrived at Chapters & Company at 5:30. The team had set up beautifully. My book cover projected on the wall, a signing table with fresh flowers, the chairs arranged in a gentle arc around the podium. My editor, Sandra, had flown in from New York. My agent, Colleen, was on a video call from her office. By 7 o'clock, every chair was full. Friends, former professors, colleagues from the ad agency, writing group members who'd read every draft. My neighbor, Mrs. Huang, who was 78 and had pre-ordered 3 copies for her grandchildren. 2 journalists, a book blogger with 40,000 followers. 212 people came to celebrate a book I'd spent 4 years bleeding into. My parents were not among them. I read from Chapter 9, the chapter about a daughter who learns to stop waiting for permission to be proud of herself. My voice cracked twice. People cried. When I finished, the room stood up. Afterward, Sandra pulled me aside. "Your parents couldn't make it?" I shook my head. She looked at me for a long time. "Josephine, I've been in publishing for 22 years. I've watched a lot of debut authors stand at that podium. What you just did was special. I need you to hear that from someone, since the people who should have said it aren't here." I almost lost it, but I held on. The signing line stretched out the door. I signed 168 copies. My hand was cramping by the end. People told me the book changed how they thought about family, about silence, about what it means to be the one who carries everything quietly. Then, at 8:47 p.m., my phone rang. Sandra was calling from across the room, grinning. "Joe, I just got off the phone with corporate. They're going back to print." "What?" "Your pre-orders exceeded projections by 300%. The first print run sold out before the launch. They're ordering a second printing of 25,000 copies. And," she paused, "the TV adaptation team wants to meet with you. A streaming platform, they're serious." I sat down on a stack of book boxes in the back room and pressed my phone against my forehead. 25,000 copies. A screen adaptation. My book. At that exact moment, somewhere in Beaverton, my parents were watching Kira apply a second coat of glaze to a bowl she'd give to Mom for Christmas and forget about by February. I didn't call them that night. I called my best friend Rena, who had been in the front row. I called my MFA mentor, Professor Adaora, who had believed in this book when it was 60 rough pages and a prayer. I called the people who showed up. 3 days later, the publisher's weekly feature went live. My face on the front page of the industry's biggest trade publication. The headline referenced the overnight success of a debut novelist from Portland. The article mentioned the sellout launch, the second printing, the streaming interest. Mom called that afternoon. "Joe, Kira's friend saw an article about you online. Is this real?" "Yes." 25,000 copies? And a TV show? "A meeting about a potential adaptation. Yes." "Why didn't you tell us?" That question. That impossible, infuriating question. "I did tell you, Mom. I told you about the book. I told you about the launch. I invited you. You chose Pottery." Silence. "That's not fair, Joe. We didn't know it was going to be this big." "It was always this big to me. It was 4 years of my life. You just never thought my work was worth showing up for." She started to cry. "We love you, Josephine. We've always been proud of you. You've always assumed I was fine. There's a difference." Dad got on the phone. "Joe, let's not blow this out of proportion. We're sorry we missed it. But you know how Kira gets." "Dad, I'm not asking you to explain Kira. I'm asking you to explain yourselves. I wrote a book, a real book. A publisher paid me $60,000 to write it. 200 people came to celebrate it. It sold out before the launch. And you weren't there because Kira's Tuesday night pottery class was more important." He was quiet for a long time, then, We should have been there. Yes, you should have. Can we read the book? You can buy it, like everyone else. That wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to hand them something I'd bled for and pretend it didn't matter if they paid attention. The following months changed everything. The second printing sold out in 6 weeks. A third printing of 40,000 copies followed. My agent negotiated a $350,000 deal for the streaming adaptation rights. I was interviewed by NPR, invited to 3 literary festivals, and profiled in a magazine I'd been reading since college. I quit my copywriting job on a Friday afternoon. My boss, who'd watched me write ad copy about yogurt and mortgage rates for 5 years, hugged me and said, "Go be who you were always supposed to be." I cried in the elevator. I paid off my $31,000 in student loans in a single payment, the debt my parents never helped with. I set up an automatic transfer to savings. I rented a proper writing studio, a small room above a coffee shop on Hawthorne Boulevard, with a window overlooking the street and a door I could close. For the first time in my life, my writing had a room of its own. I started my second novel. Professor Adora sent me a card that said, "The world is finally catching up to what I saw on page 1. Don't let them tell you they always knew. They didn't. We did." I framed it and hung it next to my desk. 2 months after the publisher's weekly feature, my parents came to Portland. We met at a restaurant downtown, neutral territory. Kira wasn't there. She'd moved on from pottery to something else by then. Soap making, I think. Mom brought a copy of my book. She'd dog-eared pages. She'd underlined sentences. She was crying before the appetizers arrived. "I read chapter 9 4 times, she said. About the daughter who stops waiting. That was about us, wasn't it?" It wasn't a question. "Yes." Dad cleared his throat. "We made mistakes, Joe. We thought because you were strong you didn't need us. We were wrong." I was strong because I had to be, not because I wanted to be. We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't a resolution, it was a beginning. A late, imperfect, painful beginning. Today, we talk every 2 weeks. Mom sends me articles about books she thinks I'd like. Dad asks about my writing schedule. Genuinely asks, not as small talk. They came to my second book launch last month, front row. Mom held her copy against her chest like it was something precious. It's not the relationship I wanted growing up, but it's the most real one we've ever had. Kira and I are fine. She's not the villain of this story. She's just someone who was given everything and never had to learn what it cost. Last month, she texted me, "I started reading your book. It's really good, Joe. I had no idea you felt that way." That text meant more than she'll probably ever know. Some nights I sit in my writing room, the spare bedroom I converted with a desk, a lamp, and a shelf full of books by women who wrote their way out of silence. And I think about the night of the launch. 212 people in that room. The applause. Sandra's face when she told me about the second printing. The weight of a pen in my hand as I signed book after book after book. My parents weren't there, and for a long time that was the loudest part of the memory. But it's not anymore. Now the loudest part is the standing ovation. The readers who cried. The stranger who said, "You wrote my life." The moment I realized I didn't need my parents in the audience to know my voice mattered. If you're watching this and you're the one in your family who creates, who builds, who pours yourself into something no one around you understands, hear me. Your work matters even if they don't show up. Your art is not less important because it's quiet. And the people who see you, really see you, will find you. They always do. You just have to keep going long enough to let them. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Have you ever poured your heart into something, only to have the people closest to you treat it like it didn't matter? What did you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, remember, you don't need permission to be proud of yourself. Write the book, build the thing, show up for your own life, even if they won't. Your story is worth telling, I promise.